If you can find one way to recognize that you have something and be generous in a small way, that will be one step to be moving to that place of realizing that there is more than enough and that there is hope for you. Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining me. Today, I want to connect the idea of our value and how it connects to generosity. You can know that you have something to be generous with by recognizing that generosity isn't just limited to material wealth or possessions. Everyone has something valuable they can give, often in ways that may not immediately seem obvious. Here are a few things that can help you realize that you have something to be generous with. The first area is one that we all have the same amount of. Every day we are given 24 hours and each of us have that same time. This is one of the most valuable things that we can give, whether it's helping a friend, volunteering, or simply being there to listen to someone. Your presence can make a difference. If you have time to offer, you have something to be generous with. The next area is unique skills, talents, or knowledge that can be shared. Whether you're good at problem solving, cooking, teaching, or just offering advice, your experience can be a form of generosity. Think about what you do well and how that might benefit someone else. Next would be generosity that comes through empathy and kindness. It doesn't have to be tangible. Offering emotional support, a kind word, a simple being there for someone in their time of need is a powerful way to be generous. Compassion and understanding are valuable gifts, especially in moments when someone is struggling. You can be generous by helping with tasks, your energy, your effort, providing support or contribution to cause a project that matters to move forward. Whether it's offering a helping hand at work towards a common goal, applying your energy and efforts to a lot of situations, whether it's friends and family, whether it's at work, in a lot of different situations where energy is needed, this is another way that you can be generous. Next, it would be your attention and your presence. In today's busy world, being fully present with someone can be one of the most generous things that you can offer. Listening without distractions, engaging in conversation, or simply being there for someone are powerful acts of generosity. Another way that we can be generous is through opportunities. Sometimes generosity can come in forms of creating opportunities for others. If you have connections, access to resources, or influence in a certain area, you can be generous by using those to help someone else succeed or find new possibilities. This is probably the most common area that people think of when they're talking about generosity, and that is material resources. If you have extra money, food, or other resources, sharing these can be a form of generosity. Simple acts, sharing a meal, offering a ride, or giving away items you no longer need are meaningful ways of being generous. Finally, the last area is your perspective and your experience. Sometimes simply sharing your life experience or your perspective can help others navigate their own challenges. Your insight, your story, your lessons learned can be invaluable to someone going through the similar situations. The key is to shift your perspective from thinking generosity is only grand gestures of financial wealth. True generosity comes from recognizing that we all have something to give. Whether big or small, we can all benefit others. The more you reflect on your own strengths, times, and abilities, the more you're aware of your own value, the more you will realize how much you really have to offer the world and how generous you can actually be. There's a lot of hindrances that we can talk about when it comes to generosity, and a lot of these are really valid and they should be taken into consideration. Your value for self shouldn't always be balanced with generosity. Ensuring that you give from a place of abundance is really important. Your value for self should always be balanced with generosity, ensuring that you give from a place of abundance and not depletion. Here are some signs that your value for self may extend beyond what is healthy when it comes to generosity. The first area is when it leads to self-neglect. If your generosity is causing you to neglect your own needs, whether you are physical, emotional, or financial, it may be time to reconsider. True generosity doesn't require sacrificing your own well-being or happiness. If you are constantly giving at the expense of your own health, energy, or peace, you may be extending yourself too far. The second way that we can do this is when you are driven by guilt or obligation. Generosity should come from a place of willingness and joy, not from guilt or obligation. If you are giving because you feel like you should, or because you're afraid of how others will perceive you, it may be an indicator that you're valuing the expectations of others over your own self-worth. In those cases, generosity is no longer healthy because it is not coming from a genuine place. The third area is when it is one-sided. Healthy generosity should not be a one-sided street. If you constantly give without receiving any support or reciprocity, you may end up feeling used, depleted, or resentful. Valuing yourself means recognizing that your relationships should have a balance where both parties contribute and support to each other. The fourth area is if you are feeling resentful, unappreciated, or taken advantage of. In your act of generosity, there are signs that you may be giving too much. Resentment often arises when you give beyond what you feel comfortable. It is important to protect yourself, ensuring that your generosity is not draining you emotionally or mentally beyond what you want to give. The fifth area is when it becomes about proving your worth. If your acts of generosity are tied to proving your value to others, whether to gain approval or admiration or validation, then you may be overextending yourself. Generosity should not be a way to boost your self-esteem or confidence, your worth in the eyes of others. Your intrinsic value does not depend on how much you give or on how selfless you are. The sixth area is when you are feeling burnt out or exhausted. If your generosity leaves you feeling physically or emotionally exhausted, you may be giving beyond your means. Burnout can happen when you continuously put others' needs above your own. It's important to listen to your body and your emotions and recognize when your needs is to recharge. The seventh area is when you are sacrificing your goals and dreams. If your generosity is causing you to put your own goals, dreams, and aspirations on hold, it might be time to reassess. Valuing yourself means recognizing that your personal growth and fulfillment are just as important as helping others. If your generosity constantly comes at the cost of your future or your own development, you are likely giving too much. The eighth area is when it harms your relationships. If your acts of generosity lead to enabling unhealthy behaviors in others, such as overdependency or manipulation, it can create dysfunction in relationships. Being generous doesn't mean you should allow others to take advantage of you. True generosity fosters healthy, respectful relationships. Rather than sacrificing your own well-being, true generosity fosters healthy, respectful relationships rather than just sacrificing your own well-being. How do you balance generosity and self-value? When you really know your limits and you know when you are giving beyond your limits, you really can balance that and make those decisions wisely. If it's something that's really important to you and aligns with your values and you're pushing yourself beyond your limits, then keep going. But when you know your limits and your sacrifice and that you're making towards your values and your goals isn't something that you want to do, don't be afraid to say no. Don't be afraid to choose generosity in the future, be able to give out of a healthy place, than forcing it now in this moment. The next area is by really practicing self-care, prioritizing your physical and emotional health. When you are caring for yourself, you are in a much better position to give generously from a place of abundance. If you know what you need and you are giving that to yourself regularly and you're being very intentional about that, you will have more time and be able to be there more for the people that you love and being more invested in their lives. The next area is really giving without expectations. When you're giving and you want something in return, you're not really giving out of a generous heart. You're really transactionally doing something. And then make it a transaction. If you want to do something for someone and you expect something back, just make that clear. If you want to be generous, give without expectations. Finally, it is really important to recognize your own worth. Your value does not depend on how much you give. You are inherently worth more, and your generosity should not be an expression of your value, and it shouldn't be a means of proving yourself. When you can give out of a place of abundance, out of a place of power, you really will be able to see how beautiful the world is. You will be able to see how abundant this world really is. There is more than enough. I hope that through this video, you can move into one of the areas of whether it's being more aware of where you are when it comes to generosity, or recognizing how you could maybe be a little bit more generous. We all can grow in this area of both taking care of ourselves so that we are giving out of a place of abundance, and also realizing that we have more than enough, that we can be generous with what we have, and that in that generosity, we are going to get empowered, we are going to get stronger, we are going to be valued, and there is going to be a lot more that is going to get compounded through our generosity. If you are at the end of your rope, financially, emotionally, in relationships, you really have no direction, no real purpose in your life. If you can find one way to recognize that you have something and be generous in a small way, that will be one step to be moving out of that place of there isn't enough, I'm at the end, to realizing that there is more than enough and that there is hope for you. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I will talk to you again tomorrow.